Thank you very much. Nice seeing you all. It's a great event here in Romania. I'm so happy to see such nice panels. I want to invite in the stage my colleagues in the panel. I want to invite Vladimir Pintea from Soltage, Radu Popa from LUXHUB, Andrei Berghian from ASECO, and Mr. Ingo Kipker from Horvath and Partners. And for almost 1 hour we want to speak more on the open banking issue, but we want to be more down to earth, more focused, yeah, isn't it? So thank you very much for being here. Let's have a round of introduction, you guys. Tell us about you and also about your companies involved in open banking.
Okay, I'll try to start. So my name is Vladimir Pintea. I'm the head of Open Banking Gateway for Soltage. So our main proposition is to enable the railways to access the account information services and payment initiation services for TPPs and our partners that don't have licenses. Okay. Radu?
Hi, my name is Radu Popa. I'm the CTO of LUXHUB. We're a Luxembourgish company created by the 4 major retail banks in Luxembourg, initially for PSD2 compliance. So we helped them implementing that, and after that we're developing a suite of new products, already having account aggregation and payment initiation. Pretty soon a marketplace for all kind of financial and non-financial APIs, and well, we'll see where we go from there.
You're Romanian, you're from Republic of Moldova, isn't it? So.
Hi, my name is Andrei Berghian. I'm a recent addition to ASECO's team, part of the banking solution sales. I've been working in open banking ever since the perspective of PSD2 came into place, so for about 3 years now. ASECO has solutions both for PSD2 compliance, so exposing APIs for banks, but also for consuming them, so we also have our own aggregator. And on top of that, we also have solutions for internet banking and mobile banking that go very well hand in hand with this PSD2 and open banking.
Thank you, Andrei. And Ingo?
Hi, my name is Ingo Kipker. I'm a partner within the financial industry practice of Horvath and Partners. I'm the leader for banking. To make it short, we help banks to survive in the digital age. Yes, and we are kind of implementing non and beyond banking solutions for bank.
Okay, I will speak a little bit about myself. I'm Cosmin Cosma. I'm here in Romania. We have an early stage startup doing a middleware aggregation infrastructure for open banking APIs. But I'm coming back to you, and let's fire a little bit. Do the banks you are all working with banks, yeah? So you are not the banks, you are working with banks, yeah, or you try to work with banks, yeah. It's like something that you try to get, in fact, with the banks. Tell me, what's your feeling? There's 1.5 years since this buzzword of open banking started to blow. What's your feeling? Do the banks are really interested in this open banking, or not yet? Vladimir.
Yeah, so our perspective on this is the next one. So we, more than 2 years ago, started with open banking in UK. So we were among the first TPPs that got their licenses and started actually integrating and
you have both AISB and PISP license?
At this moment, AISB. We're looking towards getting an PSP license here in Romania.
Okay.
So, and the way how it started in UK was quite different from the mainland Europe, mainly because there were different standards. The market is having a lot of big players, and each of those big groups of banks started implementing and playing along their own technology, along their own APIs, their own in-house developed standards. Then Berlin Group came, and a lot of them started adopting them and like deprecating the older versions of their own private APIs, and it made it quite harder to keep track with them. Yeah. So one of our main goals was in order to keep the same process, the same quality of service for our clients and our partners, was to standardize those APIs between different like countries, regions, big groups of banks, and provide a single API for those that doesn't change that fast or doesn't change depending on standard. So that's something that helped us a lot to bring a lot of APIs and integrate with a lot of them, but not disrupting our clients' place and providing them the same level of service as it was prior to PSD2.
So it started all with Open Banking UK, which was a simple standard, and then they came with Berlin Group, with STET, with Polish API, and so on. And it created more value to be provided by a middleware aggregation partner, isn't it?
In a way, yes. But again, as we see that in order to have access to those APIs, you need to be licensed. And a lot of clients that don't have a proposition on showing the aggregated information and so on to the end customer don't need those licenses. So in these terms, it's harder for them to get access to this quality APIs, to these quality services. And that's when we come to their help with our partners program and enable those custom lending solution, custom mortgage solution, any mobile API fintechs that need access to information in order to add value to the end customer without showing some additional information or the part where they need to be regulated.
I will come back to this partner program because it's something that we would like to develop more. But in Luxembourg, Luxembourg is a small country with a lot of banks.
Right. We do indeed have a lot of banks, especially for such a small country. It's quite different, I would say. In Luxembourg, we are very small, a lot of not only banks but financial institutions in general. Being so small, we got a little bit of influence from all around. So there are some of our customers that implement the Berlin Group standard, and others that are implementing the STET, the French standard. And then we even got in contact with Open Banking UK implementing banks. So it was quite difficult to put that in place. Eventually, what we ended up with, at least initially for PSD2 compliance, was to support in our platform all the standards and allow the bank to choose the one that they want to expose. We didn't create an API by ourselves, but just allow them to expose the standard that they choose.
Oh, very nice.
Right, and only now we came back, let's say after about 1 year, due to this experience, and we created one unique API, well, even the product is called LUXHUB 1, that basically aims to put together a little bit of these standards and provide not only a unique API from the point of view of the data content, but also a common security profile and a common way of defining the user experience and so on.
Radu, are they really see a value in this open banking, or are just playing compliant? That's all the game there.
Well, it's kind of both actually. It started as compliance, for sure. I mean, what will prompt a bank to do anything else if not regulatory measures or competition from, let's say, fintechs or, I don't know, big technology companies that are entering the game and so on. But now we see, especially this year, that it's beginning to change. So we have more and more contacts in this direction of us basically providing the building blocks and having the banks implementing value-added product on top of that.
And how does it work? You go to the bank and propose a new use case, or they are reading Horvath and Partners study, research, and then they come to you hopefully, yeah, to the page from the research and say, I want to do this kind of stuff. How it works?
You see some heavy activities from banks screening the market, looking for new solutions on the market which they can implement. So they're making lots of beauty contests, they're making hackathons, they're inviting new startups and fintechs to present themselves. And with this format, they're kind of getting new ideas, and some of them are getting implemented.
And then you print also research. They more of them are reading about these use cases, and they are coming to their senses.
Yes, this is one opportunity, of course. You know, using one of these mentioned formats to present themselves, but some ideas are coming from the inside, from the innovation labs or digital labs, and they find out that there is a specific customer demand, and they're looking and searching the market if there's already an existing solution in the market.
And you are approaching also proactively, let's say. There was a case here in Romania, and in the Romanian market, McKinsey went to BRD Societe Generală subsidiary and presented the potential of doing with you control, so aggregating some of the banks. Yes. So this is somehow from a consultancy boutique that started the discussion. Do you do this?
Yes, we have requests from banks, smaller banks, medium-sized banks, that say, okay, we need to speed up our innovation. We have to be faster in the time to market. We don't have major capabilities, UX designers and IT implementers. So they actively ask us to support their open banking or API strategy, and we make a market screening for them, and then we test and use cases, which kind of opportunities do they have in the local market. So we also support some banks in the Middle East. And
in Middle East there's no open banking. Or there is in Bahrain. I know in Bahrain there is.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So banking
the winter is
looking
coming.
for new opportunities to cooperate with fintechs or startups, and it's kind of a new development that's coming.
What about you, Andrei? You are representing one of the big players in the core banking systems in Central and Eastern Europe. I believe you have almost 20% in all the banks in Central and Eastern Europe with your core banking system, and also you're doing a lot of omnichannel implementations.
Yes. That's the new focus indeed.
Yeah, you have another discussion with the banks, not directly through open banking, but what's their approach?
It's related somehow. So open banking, of course, begins through the omni-channel. In terms of what the banks are looking to do, indeed we have quite a lot of requests to aggregate information, because what the banks are looking to do right now is to capitalize on the investment that they've made with the compliance solutions that they have to do in order to expose their services through APIs. So indeed, a lot of banks are looking right now at what would have been the real threat, meaning the TPPs. So they are looking to play that role, to become TPPs. But I'm not sure whether all the banks, or at least some of them, know exactly what they are going to do further on with the aggregated information. Most of the questions that we get from some of the banks are, what are the neighbors doing? What are they going to do with this?
What's ING doing? What's BBVA doing? Let's see. Yeah.
Still, it's not the worst scenario. I mean, at least one thing that they got right is that the first thing comes first. In open banking, you need to aggregate all of these services exposed in order to do anything else. And we've seen, even in the hackathon that we've been together in, that all ideas that were presented there, all services that were constructed, were upon a platform that aggregated, first of all the
account information. Yeah,
exactly.
Account information.
So that's basically the building block. They still have time to think about what services they'll build upon that, but it's really very important that at least they do this first step.
Yeah.
And they're open towards it, they all understand it.
What about the kind of banks are going in the early adoption phase? It's like Ingo said, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, or even the big ones?
I think there's a mix. From my experience, there's a mix. There's all types of banks, so from the very small ones to the really large ones. Really larger ones want more control. They have also some ideas figured out of what they want to do next with that. But it's also for the really smaller banks that, exactly as Ingo said, it's best for them if they already look out in the market for a solution already existing.
Vladimir,
So our experience with that is that very different banks approach us on different topics. So if a big bank does its homework and indeed has a technological or consultancy system at their hand, they will approach us in order to find more information about this type of services we provide or something like that. And there are as well as tier 2 or tier 3 banks, the smaller ones, which approach us directly because, for example, the PSD2 compliance solution or, for example, a white label PFM solution. So we can deliver that very fast and get them ready to the digital market even before they really know how to monetize it or how to get value from it. And then they just iterate and build it on top of that and become fully digital or neo-bank.
So in a way, you at Soltage are doing not only data railways, but you also do white labeling implementation and even the API gateways for the PSD2 compliance?
Yes, our product line is quite vast at this moment, so we do PSD2 compliance already for 2 years. We also provide PFM as a service for the banks that don't want it mainly in their in-house solution. And in that way, we provide a platform from which bank can iterate fast and launch products, POCs, very fast to the market.
And what about Luxembourg? In Luxembourg, all the banks are big there, isn't it?
Well, I'm not sure.
With a small footprint.
No, in Luxembourg, one particularity is that we have a lot of private banks. So these are not big numbers, but they are very big in assets. Right? So the type of asset that they manage is quite important. But in the same time, we found out during the compliance project that they have an IT department of 2 people. So it will be quite a challenge for them not only to become open banking of any kind, but even to implement the compliance regulatory measures that they needed to implement, right? So what we are trying to positioning ourselves is basically to become a trusted advisor for the banks, not work like a fintech that is bringing the brilliant ideas and they're going to implement them for you, but to drive the big ship that is a bank eventually in the direction that can help them to evolve later.
Okay, and you did some, let's say, tell me some very down-to-earth examples of, I don't know, wealth management banks or private banks that did something with your APIs or with your services. Can you example?
Right now it seems that the traction is still around retail actually. Most of the happenings are there, and I guess it has to do with PSD2, which basically addresses this type of market. But again, the way that we are trying to position our product is not like a final product, but like a building block. We see eventually what we are developing is account aggregation, right? A lot of us are doing that. Probably it's, I would say, an open secret if everybody is doing it, right? So for me, it's a commodity. We are trying to position it as such and basically provide it to the banks just like a stepping stone on which they can develop their own product. And we are trying to help them with ideas about these new products and what they can do with them.
Regarding this idea, Ingo, do you think that right now we are positioned, everybody should have the APIs in production? Does the compliance phase finished and starting the innovation really? Or we are still need to help the banks to do their compliance part?
Cosmin, let me finish one thought that from the question you had before. You were asking for what are the major fields in open banking and what are the major topics. So next to the account aggregation multi-banking activities, what we see at the market now, there are 2 developments. One is bank assurance. We see a kind of bank assurance 2.0 because every bank has tried to sell insurances, but it never really worked out. now with the digital channels we have new opportunities. So we're seeing major developments and major cooperations between banks and digital insurance companies or digital brokerage companies to integrate insurance sales into the digital online and mobile banking.
Maybe it all started with the insurance in Revolut.
Maybe, but there were some other.
Because it's inspiring to see the kind of bank assurance implementation that Revolut did.
The perfect thing is we see a big demand for instant and micro insurances, and you have a perfect opportunity with all the data, with all the magic moments, you know, from transactional data in banking to sell these instant and micro insurances.
And getting back to this compliance mode, so are still the bank in the compliance mode? They are still waiting?
No. I think we are even further because we see some tier 1 banks, tier 2 banks, but even medium and smaller banks who are extremely active in open banking and API banking. I think we are already in a more major phase. We see some banks, the major banks, as Deutsche or ING, who are using this as a strategic options, like using corporations with open banking partners to exploit the market, to test the market, and if it works, they will decide on to keep the service with the API or to rebuild it with their own digital capabilities.
This is not yet seen in the end user environments, because, for example, if you look at Central and Eastern Europe, the first bank in Hungary started, one single bank started with a single API aggregated. It's a B&H from Erste, taking the data from Erste, which is for us in the middleware aggregation. We see why should you launch anything in production with only one API? And in Poland it is ING Bank Slaski, which started with only 2 banks. So so it's not seen in the outside. You can see it in the background.
When you look at the German-speaking market, like Germany or Netherlands or Austria and Swiss, you will see many examples. Like ING, I mentioned before, they're working together with Scalable, integrating them via API, with Lendico, with Clark, with a lot of fintechs, and they're using the
You are German-based?
Yes.
Ingo? Yes. That's why, because there is Figo, there is the post solution, there is Raisin, there is a lot of movement there. Yeah. But from here, from the Central and Eastern Europe, we are still dreaming of. Hopefully, in the morning, Becere told us that they are preparing.
Yes.
So hopefully, this will be a start in the market.
But you have already some very good role models if you look to the Central European markets. Even we have talked about BBVA a couple of times. That's also mentioned Santander, who are doing an excellent job here, and in terms of digital activities, but also in terms of open banking, and working together with a lot of startups and using the API. So you will see some hopefully experiences in the Central European markets.
Hopefully. I want to touch down. You want to say something?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit to this compliance. Is it over or not?
Yes. Over or not?
I think I have the privilege to be one of the few panelists that is actually from the technology part of the things, right? So
you are the CTO.
Yes, I'm the CTO. So basically, I'm the guy that takes care about flows and security profiles and this kind of stuff, defining architecture and so on. So from this point of view, I'm sorry to say, but compliance is not ready by far. We have I don't know how many standards, but quite a few. We have some that are more developed than the others. They are usually not 100% compatible. You have the UK example that is a lot better done and more taken care of. And also what I think is dearly missing in all the other European standards is the fact that everybody is concentrating on APIs. And there is nothing else. There is no talk about user experience. There is no talk about the common security profile. Everybody is inventing a lot of things instead of following standards. to me, the whole thing is treated from a technology point of view, like the best invention after sliced bread. And I think it is not. APIs exist in the market, in the technological market, since quite some time. There are quite good standards created around everything. And for some reason, in this area, it was decided that everything should be reinvented.
And just to back up my colleague here, indeed, PSD2 is not yet finished, so the compliance game didn't finish yet, mainly because some of the enforced SCA regulations were postponed to March,
Yes.
and the others were postponed to the end of year, the next year. So in these terms, we will have a lot to do more. And indeed, I totally agree that right now it's very important for the market to focus from the compliance and the APIs to the customer experience and how these products will work after the compliance phase ends.
Yeah, so you're saying that we'll have still 1 year ahead of us to do R&D in our own labs with the banks, and then the people will see the value. Yeah?
At least 1 year.
Well, what about, I want to put on the table the idea of one of the players in Europe from Nordics think that are promoting right now as a fallback solution that reverse engineering, which in my opinion is screen scraping 3.0. Well, you are familiar with screen scraping, I know. How do you feel about this? Because it's like a step back with this idea.
Yeah, actually there were a lot of other competitors that were trying to do this, and even we tried to do this. But again, then you have a very strong coupling with the bank's interface and the bank's
It's not
API.
working, or it's working?
Just any change, any iteration on the banking API and the mobile banking API, and it breaks everything. So you cannot build a reliable channel based from those reverse engineered APIs.
It's like screen scraping.
Yeah, so basically it's like screen scraping, but you cannot iterate that fast. You cannot do fixes as agile as you would do with screen scraping.
Let's explain, maybe not all the people are here technical. Let's explain what is this reverse engineering. Maybe you, Radu, can help me. What is this reverse engineering instead of API connection?
Well, eventually it's still an API connection, basically.
Yeah.
The difference is that instead of implementing a standardized API that everybody has the open specification to and can follow and is basically open to the market, it is reverse engineering, so basically finding out how it is working. The existing API that the bank was using probably for their web banking application, or a mobile payment application solution of whatever kind they have, right? I will give you the example again of Luxembourg. Actually, I was involved in that project. We had a local payment solution, mobile payment solution called DigiCash, that eventually it was acquired by Payconic, a bigger company. We'll have the CEO of Payconic tomorrow invited here to speak, so he might tell you more about that. It developed proprietary APIs with the major retailer banks in Luxembourg. And those APIs were pretty much PSD2 of one letter. So they can be very well used. Well, it was quite some time back, so they were SOAP-based and not REST-based, but let's not go into technicalities.
Yes.
So they can be very well used, but they are proprietary. So in order to be able to use such an API, you literally have to take the mobile application that implements them and find out how it works, and eventually piggyback on this API.
Let me put it up, because I'm not technical at all, so I can put it in a very practical way. So it's like you don't have an API, PSD2 API for that bank, and you take their mobile app. You research which are the endpoints that the mobile app accesses in order to take the data from the bank, and you go in that holes and take yourself the data. You are not screen scraping like in the, so you don't go in the screen of the application, but you go into that hole and take the data, isn't it? It's like this?
Yeah, even worse, you need to mimic the customer behavior, you need to mimic the bank mobile application credentials and so on.
And
so it's even worse.
And even worse. And if the bank changes a little bit in their mobile application, that makes an update, the whole doesn't work anymore, you need to reassess the whole. So that's the point, yeah? So,
well, sorry, it looks like quite bad, right? You are taking the thing apart and then you are piggybacking on a solution that is not really made for you.
Yeah.
But in the same time, I can understand from a certain measure the point of view of the solution that are doing something like that. It's just like with web scraping. We can see now in the market, basically, that the APIs that are dedicated for compliance are not really working. Or they work in 20,000 different ways, on 20,000 different variants of the standards. And we started our account aggregation business, and actually wanted to congratulate Soltage because they said they integrate 600 or I don't know how many banks.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate that they can do that. I can say that it's quite a difficult proposition. I mean, we just started, but it's a huge work to implement basically 1, 2, 3, 4 standards that we are having major in Europe. And because of the different versions of each implementation, it's mission impossible. I have in mind, I would like not to name names, but there is a very big group that is all over Europe that have a corporate solution for open banking. And there is a huge difference between their documentation of the API, the sandbox implementation, and the production implementation.
Let's speak on this. Did you happen to have any discussions with bank on these fallback solutions, or what do you, as a provider of omnichannel, how do you look at this kind of brilliant idea that the guy had at some point?
How could I look at somebody trying to reverse engineer my mobile banking application? Really, no.
But
no, from one point of view, so from this point of view of being a provider of such solutions, we know that especially the Android ones, the Android apps can be more easily, let's say, cracked rather than the iOS ones. As far as I know, so far ours hasn't been cracked, hopefully, but nothing is made to be unbreakable. We do take all the measures possible for this type of things not to happen. But anyway, the focus was not on this, on how reliable or secure our Android app is. Most of the banks try to, I don't know, run away from fallback solutions. They just want to rely on their PSD2 APIs, which is actually even better, and the approach that I would say is the best practice. And regarding this part of the reverse engineering, I think it's even worse actually than the screen scraping, because the providers also use IPs that they assign to the client. So basically, if I was an end user of such an application, I don't know if I would be comfortable in using it if I knew from the very beginning that that particular provider was going to address my bank and my mobile banking application impersonating myself in such a way.
Indeed. So nobody, like you said here, nobody is really looking at the customer experience. Even the guys that are trying to do innovation and open banking somehow, but the intentions are good, and I want to go to Ingo because I want to ask him. Okay, let's think as a consultant. Yeah, the intention is good. Right now we don't have the APIs really functional. But we want to push this train of open banking into the railway. So we need to do something like these guys are promoting to do. Is this an issue of the banks, of the regulatory system, or who's to blame?
Who's to blame? That's a good question. I told you that from my point of view, when we look at Central Europe, you will see that there is quite rising maturity in open banking. So I'm not that frustrated and depressed about the current status. I see it more positive than you are.
This is good.
And what we see is, of course, when banks are going to look for API partners, they're looking for, of course, very stable solution, a very mature solution. So that's, of course, one requirement for them. And if they see very innovative solutions that are kind of complex, that they're not cannot build with their own capabilities, they're willing to try and...
But are you familiar with, from the regulatory point of view, are you familiar with the position of the regulators regarding this, this idea? Are they in favor or of offering this gate for the banks for a limited time? Okay, let them do this.
No, they're quite active in check and balance. Of course, they're kind of not releasing a common sandbox framework as you could see in other countries, but they're kind of checking each and every implementation, and of course they're asking them for specific requirements.
Which is good. Hopefully we will see this also in Romania, because the law just started, and right now our National Bank of Romania doesn't have yet the authority. It will come into authority next month, and hopefully we'll have this kind of check-up on the current status from the technical point of view. I want to go in another direction regarding these API. Open banking is mainly about API platforms communicating each other, but the banks, from the tech point of view, some of the banks are still very in love with the on-premises tech stack, and I want to ask you what did you see in the market? There are still banks trying to do open banking with the on-premises, or we will see 100% adoption, at least for open banking in a cloud environments like we develop?
Can I try to answer that? So, first of all, what we've seen so far in the market is that for this type of APIs and open banking solutions, the bank's appetites for going towards cloud solutions is much more higher than for other types of solutions. So we came, first of all, prepared with an on-premise solution, with an API aggregator that was supposed to be installed in the bank, used by them, monitored and exploited by the bank in their own system. But it comes with quite a burden, because all those endpoints that have to be mapped there, then they have to be also maintained. The documentation has to be, for those APIs, has to be constantly monitored by the bank. So some of them, which are quite big, are not comfortable with this type of administration, because they have to allocate members of their teams, of their IT to do this, and they're not quite comfortable with this. And the smaller banks don't have the necessary resources to go through this. So to answer your question, I think that it is going to be possibly, I don't know, hybrid architecture deployment with components sitting in the bank that will just connect to the unique API of platforms, of aggregating platforms, where they only need to monitor a single API and through that have access to the entire market. That's
okay. So you still see some space for this on-premises part, but taking only one API from us, from Soltis, from LUXHUB, and then just to machine the data in their own courts. Did you see it the same?
So in any way there is some kind of integration. So there is some kind of application on the bank side that is communicating to us. So in these terms you need just to specify and give them possibility to be in control. So just provide them the required instruments for them to be fully aware of what's happening in your system. So in these terms you just remain as a service provider for them, and you just maintain those APIs that were mentioned previously.
Well, for example, you are implementing this also there inside part, or just consult them on how to do it and give them the pipe of data aggregated with the
Yeah, so from our end, we choose to educate them, yeah, indeed. So we do workshops, we present them the solutions, we present them the use cases, and they are free to choose which path they would like to take, and we will totally guide them through the process. And then they are fully in control of like very flexible client dashboard on our end, and they are aware of what's happening with their connections, with their data flows and so on. And also it's very important to be ISO compliant, so in these terms they won't have questions on how you handle private data, on how you handle like data retention, how you do your internal policies, because you already are compliant, you already passed through needed authorizations for them to be sure that your SaaS solution is a reliable one and all the processes are taken care of.
What about LUXHUB? Do you also implement or just consult some on-premises components for your API to be used?
We basically provided guidance and actually a lot of documentation about how the API should behave. And from the point of view of cloud or hosted solution, we are 100% hosted in Luxembourg in a tier 4 data center, so the data is never leaving the premises of our data center. There's nothing in the cloud, and we intend to remain like this, at least for the compliance products. And for the other products, we'll have the edge connection to the third parties still hosted always, the API gateway that will protect everything, and maybe move some non-essential services in the cloud. The connection to the bank is always non-public, it's a secure connection, a VPN to be specific. So, you know, basically the big secret, right? The banks don't really like to open up their chest,
yes.
Right? And I'm talking here about the chest related to data.
It will be a panel after us, just to promote a little bit the next panel dedicated to this issue, because this issue, the cause of this issue is the security issue. The security and the data compliance issue. So, but I understand, I want to go to Ingo a little bit and ask him, what do you think? Do you think that the banks are right now in a defense mode regarding the cloud infrastructure, or they are starting to build value?
It depends on which region you're looking at. Once again, I'm quite familiar with the Central European market, so what we see is a clear tendency to moving into the cloud, because it's giving banks some opportunities, and especially the big opportunity to reduce IT costs. But we see a very big skepticism towards a cloud solution coming from the US.
Yes, after 25 years since the cloud was invented, we are still here.
Yes. So you know that there are some the leading cloud providers are from the US or from the Asian Chinese market, so there's a big skepticism to that. So keeping the data inside the country is one of the main requirements.
Thank you for having this as a very technical. We got in depth in this panel a little bit on the technical ecosystem, but I want the last question to handle to you to be like a question on dreaming a little bit. I just heard about this idea of invisible banking. And there was a lady from Starling Bank, Anne Boden, CEO, in the last documentary on the level 13 on the UK fintech, saying that open banking is going to invisible banking. What does it mean? So how does the world will look like when the compliance space will be fully over and the APIs will be working? How it will be in your own life?
So our perspective on it is that once we go through the compliance phase and we are ready or already built something value added on top of that data or on top of the payment initiation, we can understand that there are no limits. So it's you can think about it as a globalization of banking, because any application, any third-party service provider, any service that you are using will be indeed going through this banking and through getting your information from account information from the bank, then initiating payments on your behalf, and you indeed will have a number of accounts in different banks, but you would never visit that bank. You would never need to go to a specific branch to sign some papers, because everything will happen in a fully digital, fully globalized infrastructure.
Cool. How it will work? It will work in your car?
I don't know, if you really want, I can dream, but I'm actually the guy that makes it happen.
Yeah.
So I let the dreams to you, but if you really want to have a look at the outcome of this, I would say it's quite easy to look at what happened in other industries. You had the telecom revolution in the 2000s, right? When the infrastructure of telecoms opened up, and you've seen a lot of emergent services. After a while, you've seen that this began to accumulate, and the big player didn't disappear, just got smarter. And then you see a lot of other initiatives from other areas of technology that are getting into horizontal markets, abandoning their vertical. You have AWS now that is doing pretty much of everything, and Amazon is not selling books anymore. So I think this is what will happen here. How exactly it will look like, I think it's just too early to imagine anything concrete.
Yeah, it's you touched on this telecom right now. Most of the telecom players are using voice over IP for international calls, which was quite impossible at some point. They were seeing voice over IP like something very trashy in the beginning, but right now they are using it in international calls almost 90%. Andrei, how your life will be when the invisible banking will be around?
Actually, I wanted to take a bit of a different approach, because we've been tackling quite a bit this personal side of the invisible bank, even with the examples that Brad gave us this morning. But I wanted to go a little bit into a different segment of customers of a bank that will be impacted. So what about the companies? How would the invisible bank look for the company? What if in their ERP they could also see now, I don't know, whenever one of their invoices was paid, they would just be signaled there. What if the reconciliation was done completely automatically by the bank, because it can access all their accounts and know what invoices they have to be paid or already cashed in? What if they could just request an invoice to be financed by the bank directly from their ERP with just a click of the button?
It's not enough time to take it, because in treasury management it's a direct impact in value creation for the P&Ls of the corporates. But yes, indeed, invisible banking should work in the corporate as well, isn't it? Yeah.
I think that actually there are most of the use cases and the biggest wins of this open banking and the greatest put to use of a solution in that direction.
Yeah, we are right now trying to start a POC with a big bank regarding a corporate customer exactly with this point. Because if you are a company that has a holding company that has 5 companies within, and each company has 5 banks and 5 accounts, the treasury management of the holding is quite manual, because they need to get the data from the accounting departments. Inko.
Let me share my vision of
open banking and invisible
banking. Our vision is that banks will use open banking for developing new earning models and being able to survive, because we are seeing now the future of banks and using their capabilities and using their potentials, their untapped potentials to sell more or less services and products that are not specifically banking.
Yeah.
And with open banking we see a huge opportunity to do that, to become more a platform with many logins, with many traffic, with heavy usage, with daily relevance, and then using these capabilities and these potentials and these assets to sell all kinds of goods and services.
Thank you. So you want to add something?
Yeah, just to tap into your comment about Starling. So they're the first bank that delivered the bank as a service, as an invisible bank. And I can reassure you that the corporate side is already winning and is already building something on top of open banking.
Indeed. So we and you are trying to do this dream come true. If there are questions in the audience,
same question to you. What's your vision about this?
So my vision on open banking is that I dream a moment when I wake up in the morning and Amazon Alexa is telling me, Cosmin, today is rainy, so you should take your umbrella. And by the way, the air conditioning broke last night, and we ordered one from Amazon. We got a very good offer on the price of the air conditioning. We used the loyalty points from the miles from your Visa card, but also the other part of it we paid with the instant loan from Guarantee Bank. And just to let you know that 12 o'clock the air conditioning will be installed.
Amazing. Because I mean, in the USA today, we can ask Alexa, pay my utility bill. How far we are from the day when we can ask Alexa to just change my bank account from bank A to bank B?
Actually, it's not that far.
Yeah.
So there are already services and APIs that allow this account migration initiated on the customer behalf. And in these terms, you need just the other end. So the other bank would provide you rails to open a new account, transfer the resources and so on.
Yeah, this is in fact very factual. In 2 years from now, we will see it. We can see right now Google working with a bank to opening account and sell products. So I'm just thinking of that joke with the guy asking his phone, Siri, can you check my banking account and tell me which Apple product can I buy? And the Siri replies, apple pie. You know it?
I think eventually the dreams that we are calling now are really too small. Because, like you said, really, Vladimir, this will happen quite soon. It's already there.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can really go to the moon if our plan is just to get out of Bucharest.
For example, we just started to have in our environment a sandbox of originating a sales product for a term deposit for a bank, truly full digital through API. So in our API, at our end, you can have account information, payment initiation, but you can also add on in your front-end application the workflow of generating a term deposit for a bank. Which is in fact the thing that also is indeed in the core proposition of PSD2. It's creating a cross-border marketplace in the European markets to have the products, the financial products move around. So you can open a term deposit from Romania in Bulgaria. So you can take a personal loan from Germany because the interest is cheaper and so on. So this is the next level, in my opinion, and I think where we are doing this as a main proposition to enable on top of it also the financial marketplaces in Europe. Let's get some questions from the public, if there are any, because the time is short, and we can speak 2 days on it. Some questions regarding open banking, challenges?
Or just approach us through the networking session.
Fine. Yeah.
So I have a question on scalability. I basically work for one of the largest insurance companies in the US, and we did the same thing that banks are doing in Europe. We did this 5 years ago in the US, and we realized that the core insurance database systems couldn't scale if we opened it up to Dev Portal. And so, I'm really curious from a fintech perspective, integrating into open banking APIs, what kind of, technical architecture procedures are there if, you get a whole bunch of unicorns on an open banking framework and it stresses the core system? How is the performance engineering built on open banking?
I also want to answer this question. So we had this issue when started to scratch our infrastructure, and we understood that it is very important to have the capability to scale as much as WhatsApp scaled, let's say, yeah. So it was a legendary thing that when Facebook brought WhatsApp, they were amazed that with a couple of guys, they just had this big global infrastructure, and that's why we, at some point, technically speaking, we moved the whole technological stack from Node.js, the programming language Node.js, to a functional programming which is Erlang Elixir, the same with WhatsApp, in order to have the cutting-edge technology did from scratch, because we had no legacy, in order to be able to consolidate as many endpoints as possible. This is our bet, in fact. My colleagues can tell more on this.
So I do also have some technical background myself. So how we address this is that we build all of the information stack based on the concept of multi-tenants. So we can grow horizontally and scale and provide high availability for any client as much as he grows along with us. So in these terms is we can focus on clients, we can focus on customers. It just depends on how you will break these components down for you. But keep in mind that high availability is also a key factor, and scalability, the horizontal one, is very important in these terms, because it's enough for 2 big clients to come to your service and you may not be ready for their volumes.
For me, the problem is a little bit different. Yeah, we do have the technology stack. Everybody is claiming that has the silver bullet in the technology stack, right? Mine is better than yours, of course. And I think pretty much all the gateways or all the fintechs that are doing aggregation are prepared for that. The problem, the way that I see it, at least it's in the core banking systems, those are not prepared to scale.
This is
because they are never prepared to be open. And it's just a natural.
This is the legacy that we should, it's a challenge for each and every implementation.
So,
it's the legacy from the bank, the source of data.
Again, there is no miracle here. We just need to apply the same patterns and standards that were applied till now. Computer science, it didn't really evolve a lot from the 60s.
Yes.
So the solutions are there, just need to be applied, but that is quite hard to do in practical terms, really.
What about Andrei? You can tell us a little bit about your secret sources in the tech stack?
I'm not sure how much I can say about this because in open banking, we don't really have a platform. What we have is an API aggregator, and it's using the database inside the bank. In terms of our own core banking system or systems, because there's more than one at group level, I know for sure that they're built in such a way that they're scalable and I don't know, fully adjustable in terms of any number of transactions that will be foreseen and can be increased.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed. If you do it one by one, you can deploy it better for each and every customer. That's the point. Some other questions, technical or non-technical?
I think we're good. Just one last advice to you, Cosmin, because we showed the video. We saw the video of Brett King this morning with the AI. You didn't saw it.
No, I didn't saw it.
Just be careful not to fall in love with your AI assistant, because that was quite crazy. Guys, big applause for our panelists. Thank you.